talking about the care and feeding of a PC, you know, when you've got it at home and you're not in the work environment, or you're outsourced IT situation where things are familiar. Wave Technologies spends a lot of time, and one of the attractive features for them was they spend time educating the Braintree head office people on phishing and scams and all kinds of attempts to get in and control your PC. And we thought that he might be able to share some of that knowledge that he's spread around Braintree to the rest of the group. So Marc, he's up in my screen, he's up at the top. Do you want to just take off?
Sure, thanks, George. So first of all, thanks for having both myself and Kamran on here today. We're going to start off with Kamran just kind of doing a brief introduction just to explain how COVID has affected us and what it's meant for our clients as well. And then after that, we'll get into the presentation that George talked about, a little bit about working from home and some safety tips working from home, what you can do on your personal computer to kind of take the precautions, especially during this pandemic. So Kamran, if you want to take it away.
All right, well, thank you. And George, thank you for the kind words. As George mentioned, we've been working with USWM for about 2 years now, and we're a managed service provider. So we provide outsourced IT support services for anyone who might not be familiar with that. Our experience with COVID has been actually very different from a lot of other folks out there. Initially, our workload doubled. There was a great rush to get people who were not set up to be able to work from home, to get them set up. And there's two pieces of that. There's the efficiency part, but also the security part. So that was incumbent upon us to make sure that people were able to work efficiently and safely from home in a pretty short window of time. Business has been slowly moving towards having that ability, but not all businesses are ready to flip that switch, especially how quickly things came down. So there were some challenges for us. We were able to handle the workload without having to hire people. And that was because a lot of the issues that were coming in were more on how do I access my email, shorter ticket time. We measure everything in tickets and time. Essentially, we sell time to our clients. It's our goal to get that time down as low as we can. So getting people's tickets as low as possible. That's the proactive piece that we talked about. And it took us about 4 weeks to get our client base smoothed over and in a place where they were comfortably working from home. And our tickets times and volumes have returned to what they are normally before any of this went on. And there's a large opportunity for us too. We've talked about, I think, when this is over, or the debate is, will it ever be over? A lot of people are going to return back to a traditional office, but some people are probably going to remain working remotely for a time. Some businesses are going to have to completely reevaluate what they do. These technologies have come a long way, and we're excited to talk about them once things start to settle and kind of plateau out. So that's kind of how things have come down for us here at Wave. I can, if anyone has any questions for me, if not, I can pass it on to Marc to kind of talk about some of the things on his side of things.
I do have a question. We've all been using Zoom, and for the most part, it works pretty well, but there are lots of times when the audio quality, video quality is not that great. Are there other viable alternatives that we should be looking at?
There are, each one of the products has their own little issues that they're working through. Ideally, Microsoft Teams would be the best platform. The problem is you can only have 4 people in a conference at a time. They're working towards expanding that. There are a couple of other products out there that work pretty well, but Zoom has gone around and bought up a lot of them. So people, if you've had meetings, so for example, Ring Central, if someone has Ring Central, you might see Ring Central, but meeting powered by Zoom. So there are a few out there, but Zoom right now is what we would recommend to our clients.
Okay, thanks.
Quick follow-up to that question, and it really goes along the same lines of, audio, perhaps more audio, but do you have a favorite, either, let's say a microphone or something, or a headset that you found people have had better success with?
Yeah, we have a few we recommend. Where we would start, if you were having connection issues, is with your internet speed, because that's where most of that is going to be. So we recommend that people, even in their home, have at least 75 meg speed, and if you can get into it in the internet, Comcast, Verizon, these numbers have come way down. So if you call your ISP and say, hey, listen, you got any deals for internet? You usually can get a pretty good upgrade for either lateral pricing or a small increase. That's where we'd start, though, to make sure your internet connection you have enough speed.
Thank you.
One other thing, actually, to speak to that, other network activity at home can affect your speeds. So you could have 150 meg pipe, but if your son is playing Xbox in the basement and your daughter's streaming Netflix up in her bedroom, and your husband's out listening to Spotify while he's doing yard work, you're going to have trouble with Zoom with that too. So there's a number of factors, but we're happy to help evaluate that for any one of our clients.
Okay, so we can we'll start the presentation, and actually that's a great segue because that's on one of the slides is internet bandwidth, and how to maximize your bandwidth. So Cami, I think you may need to allow me to share my screen. Let's see. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
I can.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So this presentation is going to be mainly about some working from home tips. There's going to be some things on this presentation that that kind of pertain both to the office and home. And then I'll kind of go into how you're protected in the office and how you can protect yourself at home as well. So some of the tips that we'll be going over are email safety, some things to look out for with phishing emails, things like that. Windows updates, what they are, what they're needed, and why you need them on both your home computer and your office computer as well. Some antivirus malware software, a couple of the more popular ones that you can use at home. The all-important password safety, some tips there to kind of help you with coming up with passwords and remembering passwords. And again, back to the internet bandwidth, some things you can do at home to maximize your internet bandwidth. So let's jump right into email safety. What phishing is, it's attempts to get information from you through email. And we've all seen this where they ask you to click, you get a PayPal email, it asks you to click on a button to access your account or a transaction's been declined. And you'll see, I mean, this will come from Amazon. You'll see a lot of iTunes types of emails. You know, I mean, the obvious thing you always want to look for is up here. A lot of times in the from line, they'll show you this secondary email address, and you can tell that definitely, sorry, looks suspicious. So whenever you get an email like this, you want to contact Wave to look at this before you click on anything. And one great tip that can go a long way with emails is if there's ever a link in your email, don't click on the link, but if you hover over it with your mouse, it'll show up where that link points to. And so in something like this, if you hover over a link, you expect it to send you to a PayPal website if it was a legit email. But as you can see, it sends you to this foreign email address that doesn't look like it has anything to do with PayPal. So you know that that's not a legitimate email. Again, don't click on the button, don't click on the link, but if you do just hover over it with your mouse, that will show up. And again, whenever you see that, contact Wave. We'll confirm if it's a phishing attempt or if it's a legit email, and we can help you out with that. Some other things to look for email spoofing. Always check the salutation on an email. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll just use generic type of wording rather than specific to you. Because what they do is they just send out these large amounts of email to a whole distribution list of people. And so they need to keep it as generalized as possible. Check for any grammar mistakes. Most spoofed emails are going to have some type of grammar mistakes in it or sentences that just don't sound right. That's, you know, a huge red flag when it comes to phishing. And then again, back to that, check the links in the email without clicking on the link. Just hover over the link with your mouse. You'll be able to see where that link points to. And you can see if it's a malicious website or if it's a legitimate website. And if you're unsure, again, just always contact Wave, and we can help you determine if it's legit or not. Ransomware is another big infection method, and this is through email. This could be going to websites, and you'll always. Oops, sorry, what was that? Someone have a question?
Oops.
You'll always have something like this where it says click on this button for a free iPad. You see this a lot on sites like Facebook and other social media sites like Twitter. Never click on those links. Those are huge scams that get you to click on something and then enter information or download malicious software onto your computer. Windows updates. So Windows updates it's a tool for Microsoft to send security updates to your computer. And when you're in the office, Wave takes care of that for you. So we send Windows updates to your computer, usually on a weekly basis, and it keeps your computer up to date. However, when you're at home on your personal computer, you want to make sure this is set up to either automatically install the updates for you, or you would install them manually. And there's a couple of different ways to do it. If you're on Windows 10, you would just click on the Start button. You would click on Settings and then Update and Security, and then it just walks you through the steps of installing the updates for you. A lot of times what you have to do is you install the first round. If your computer is somewhat far behind on updates, you install the first batch of updates, reboot, and it installs the next batch of updates. Windows 7, sort of the same way. You click on the Start button, then you go into Control Panel and install updates that way. But if you are on Windows 7 at home, Windows 7 became end of support January of this year. So you definitely want to look at either upgrading to Windows 10. Any new computer you buy now will have Windows 10 on it. But if you do have an older computer that happens to have Windows 7 on it, you definitely want to look at updating, because what happened is after January, Microsoft stopped sending their security updates for Windows 7. so your computer doesn't receive those security updates to keep it protected.
Mark, this is Gary. Just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
If we have our office laptop at home, are they still getting the updates?
They are, as long as they're on the internet. Our update software pushes the updates over the internet.
Okay, and things may have changed, but I recall several years ago, before I was in the Braintree office, our outside IT person would say, let's do the updates. I'm gonna say it was like once a month, but don't do them right away because, you know, oftentimes there's bugs and Microsoft's gotta, you know, get the bugs out before we do the updates. You know, what's your current thought on that? I know you said weekly, but what's your current thoughts behind that?
Yeah, so we actually take care of that for you. When the updates, what happens is the updates come into our central software, and then we push the updates out that way. So what happens is usually it's called a Patch Tuesday for Microsoft, is they'll push out updates. Our software will get those updates, and then there's usually about a week where, you know, we make sure that those updates aren't, you know, creating any bugs, any known issues that Microsoft has. And then when everything gets approved, we send those out, and then your computers get those updates.
Okay, and one final question. One of our computers at home is still on Windows 7, and I'm not looking for a long explanation, but what's the first step, second step, just to do that upgrade?
Yep, so you want to make sure the computer that you have can handle a Windows 10 upgrade. So you're looking probably at least 6 gig of memory. You know, that's kind of the most important thing, is the memory. You want at least 6 gig for memory. If your computer is more than, I'd say, 5 years old or 6 years old, then that's probably that breaking point where you want to look into a newer computer rather than upgrade what you currently have. But if you are prepared to upgrade, you can actually get the Microsoft upgrade through the Windows 7 store. You just go on your computer and upgrade it that way through the internet. I think it's $99 for an upgrade to Windows 10. And it's really just an online download. It walks you through all the steps. Make sure you know, you back up any data that you have as far as pictures. You know, most of the time that'll transfer over and you'll be fine there, but you just want to make sure you have a backup of that just in case. Any documents, any pictures, you know, save them to an external drive.
Great.
That would be the process. Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Mark, can I just cut in here for a
Sure.
second?
Mm-hmm.
Just a point of clarification for both Mark and others on the call. Mark, we have the Braintree head office advisors on the call, but as well we have individuals from our other offices around the country, and they just to make sure everybody's aware, they are not benefiting from the offer to call Wave when you spot a phishing email. I would strongly recommend that the other offices around the country have a group like Wave or comparable in their local area, so that they're getting expert advice. But hopefully these comments that Mark is making will turn some gears in your own head and make sure that you're comfortable with your IT manager and your technology in your remote office. Thanks. Go ahead.
Thanks, George. Okay, so the next slide talks a little bit about antivirus software, and this is probably the single most important thing you can have on your computer as far as security goes, is make sure you have some type of antivirus software. You know, people always say, well, do I have to pay for antivirus software? Can I use some of the free ones that you can find online? And nowadays, the major antivirus programs like Bitdefender and Zone Alarm that have free software, that's adequate enough to protect you. They may not have all the bells and whistles that something like a McAfee or a Norton has, but you know, a lot of times with antivirus software, it is the less the better when it comes to features, because really all you need is to be able to detect viruses, to clean viruses. You know, a lot of the paid versions come with firewalls and things like that, and a lot of time that tends to get in the way at times with computers. But you definitely want to make sure you have some type of antivirus software. These are the three major free antivirus software that's out on the internet: Bitdefender, Zone Alarm, and Kaspersky. Personally, I use Kaspersky at home. You know, I've never had a problem with it. It's fairly easy to install. It's really just clicking next all the way through. And then the other two are similar. You know, they're straightforward when it comes to installations, but you definitely want to make sure, if you don't have it already, to get some type of antivirus software installed.
Mark, how about antivirus software for Macs? Do you recommend that as well?
Yeah, I mean, people always say, you know, Macs don't get viruses. And it's true, they may not get the same type of viruses that Windows PCs get, but you definitely want some type of antivirus software on a Mac.
And are those three choices available for Mac as well?
I don't believe Zone Alarm is, but I believe Kaspersky and Bitdefender both have Mac versions.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, passwords. So this is a very important slide here, because as you all are well aware, passwords are pretty much the key to all of your data. You know, if anyone gets a hold of your password, that definitely compromises your data. And a lot of times it could compromise your, not only your data, but your identity as well, because that will store all your information. Obviously, never share your passwords with anyone. Your passwords, like I said, are your key to your data. You want to keep that secure. You want to keep that to yourself. Make sure your Wi-Fi passwords are complex, and that's, you know, definitely your home Wi-Fi passwords need to be as complex as you can make them, because you know, stealing Wi-Fi passwords is something that, especially nowadays where everyone knows that people are at home on their networks, it's become a bigger issue than it already was, and it was already a big issue. So you want to make sure those passwords are complex. If you do find out that somehow your password was compromised, or even if, you know, something is strange where you think you know, someone may have your password, whether it's through an email or something like that, change your password immediately. Change your password often too. There's too many times where people keep the same password for years and never change it. You know, a lot of times it's easier to remember that way, but that's the problem. It's easy to remember. If someone finds that password, they will continue to use that password to get to your information. So make sure you change your password frequently. A lot of times your IT department will set certain time limit on passwords to expire, whether it's 60 days, 90 days. But obviously when you're at home, you don't necessarily have that luxury. So you know, take it upon yourself to make sure your passwords change frequently. Again, never write your password down. Don't put your password on a sticky note on your monitor or on your laptop. Anyone who walks by your desk can see that password. So you definitely want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Avoid using known facts about yourself: pets' names, children's names, date of birth. Never use password as your password. I mean, that's the number one text that people try to use to crack passwords. And again, never use the same password for your work and personal accounts. And a lot of people say, well, you know, there's just too many passwords to remember, but you want to make sure that your work accounts and your bank account, let's say, or your password to another website are different. Because if that password gets compromised and you use it for everything, then it's a lot easier to get into those other applications.
Mark, what's your opinion of password managers?
Depending on which ones are used, I mean, I've seen some good password managers. You never want to rely on them completely. They're good when they're used just to make things a little bit easier on you on passwords, but obviously, if they have that master password to get into, if that gets lost, then you lose all your passwords and you don't remember any of them. That can cause issues. But, I personally don't use them, but they're not any less secure than, keeping them in your head or just having them to yourself. So.
What's the likelihood that, someone can break into your password manager?
To password manager, I mean, it all depends on how complicated you make that master password. If that master password is a simple password to crack, then obviously that kind of compromises that. If it's a more complicated password, the default, the Microsoft default says at least 8 characters, a mix of upper and lower case, and a number. That's usually a good complexity when it comes to passwords. Definitely, if you want to get more complex than that, the better. But that's kind of the default complexity requirement.
Okay. So password 123 is not good?
That's not good, no. But you'd be surprised how many people use that.
I'll bet.
All right, so this next slide kind of talks a little bit about what Kamran brought up with internet bandwidth. So when you're at home, it's a little different as far as internet goes, because your internet is shared not only with multiple devices, but you're sharing your Comcast line with multiple customers. You don't have for the most part, you don't have a dedicated internet line at home. So if you're at home and you're on your internet through VPN to the network, to your home office, and your children are streaming Netflix or watching Amazon Prime or playing PlayStation or Xbox, obviously your internet bandwidth is going to take a hit, and that's going to show and if you're on a Zoom meeting like this and there's voice back and forth, that is going to take up even more internet bandwidth. So, just to kind of, if you do come into those issues where you notice your internet's a little slow or the voice is a little choppy, check and make sure that, someone's not playing a game on PlayStation or streaming a movie on Netflix. Those are the biggest internet bandwidth hogs when it comes to performance and internet, and then Pandora as well, or Google Play. Anything where you're streaming music or video over the internet is gonna be a huge performance issue when it comes to internet. And again, VPN, I know I use that term for those that don't know. VPN is just a secure connection when you're at home to your home office. It kind of creates a secure tunnel for you to access your internal servers and your files. And then one slide, and this isn't necessarily a security tip, but it is a tip for if you want to record a video at home. Like, let's say you want to record something. Zoom usually has its own built-in recording if you wanted to record the meetings, but like, let's say you wanted to record something for a client or record a short video. Windows 10 has built-in applications that come with it that allow you to record video as long as you have a webcam. And to use that, you can click on the start button and then you just go into the camera application. And then there's a little toggle icon there where you can switch between video if you want to take a video, or if you want to just take a picture, you can use the camera button. And again, that comes with Windows 10. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but they have a lot of applications also that you can download from the internet that have everything from video editing to different features that you can use when it comes to making videos. One of the more popular ones is called VLC, Media Player. But again, there's a ton of applications out there that you can use. If you're a Mac user, you know, it has the built-in iMovie application that they would recommend to use. But again, there's other applications for Macs that you can use if you don't like the built-in stock apps. So the final slide here is just to kind of summarize everything we went over. For email security, again, make sure any type of suspicious attachments that you get, try hovering over that link and see if you can notice if it's a suspicious link or if it looks legit. And even if it does look legit and something just doesn't seem right, contact your IT team, let them know, and they can kind of help you with that. Oops, let me go back there. Windows updates, make sure your computer has the latest Microsoft updates to make sure you're protected when it comes to any type of vulnerabilities. Antivirus protection, make sure you have antivirus installed, whether it's a Windows PC or a Mac, to protect yourself from malware or any type of virus that could get downloaded to your PC. As far as password housekeeping goes, again, never give out your password. Make sure your passwords are complex. And just change your passwords on a regular basis. Get in that habit of changing your password maybe every 60 days, every 90 days, definitely to make that a little bit more secure for you. And again, you know, anytime there's an issue, make sure you contact your IT team. They can help you with any of these items here, just to kind of make your office experience and you know, help yourself at home as well, keeping your computer secure.
So Mark, I was surprised to hear you say that you don't use a password manager. Maybe I'm unique, but I've probably got 50 accounts that require a password of some kind or another. There's no way I could possibly remember all of those passwords. So what do you do to establish and remember your passwords?
So a lot of times with the passwords that I need to get into, I use my phone a lot, and my phone has face recognition. Any iPhone has face recognition. So I would use that a lot. And in a way that is sort of a password manager, where you enter your password initially, and then you use your facial recognition to let you into those sites.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mark,
Yes.
The world is changing. If you're wearing a mask, the facial recognition doesn't work anymore.
That is true. Yeah, I came across that the other day. I was like, why won't my phone let me in? And then I realized, oh yeah, it can't recognize me with the mask on.
I do understand. I do understand Apple is working on a modification to the facial recognition that will take into account the mask.
Oh, really?
How they're going to do that. It
Nice.
must focus more on your eyes and hair or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, it is funny. I noticed it the other day. I was like, oh, all right, well, this is going to have to change now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions? Any questions for Mark or Kamran?
I had one question. So Mark, going back to those passwords again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a memorized password that's on the browser. Is that correct? In those cases?
For like a password manager, you mean, or?
Well, no. I mean, if it's facial recognition, what happens? Isn't that memorized in the browser?
Right. So when you would access the site at first, like let's say it's a banking site.
Now, I've heard that is not a secure way to do it, is have memorized passwords on. That you should never leave a password on a web browser.
So
I know it's your browser, but
well, so it's not saving the password on the browser per se. It's saving the password on your phone. So what it does is it creates, so on your phone, it creates sort of like a private key on your phone that's encrypted, and all that information, your password gets stored in there. So it's not, sometimes if you go to a site and you'll get the browser that says, do you want to remember this password? You don't want to click yes on that. That's always a no. Whenever a browser asks you to save your password, you want to say no to that. But with facial recognition, what happens is your phone saves that password in its own sort of password locker. And then it uses that to reference with the facial recognition.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the browser password's something a little different. I mean, that's usually when you're on your computer and you try to go to a website, it'll say, you know, do you want your browser to remember this password? You definitely don't want to click that.
Okay, that's good to know. Good info.
Mark, is that a general rule, you know, for all applications, whether it's, and it's usually coming from your phone that says, do you want to remember this password?
It depends on where it's coming from. If it's coming from your phone, then when that gets saved, it gets saved to a secure password locker.
Oh.
If it's coming from a browser, like if it's Chrome or if it's Internet Explorer, and you get that little side pop-up that says, do you want to save this in your browser, this password in your browser? That's when you want to definitely say no to that.
Okay. Well, I had a couple of questions while we wait for others. With regard to your PC, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, what's the current advice? You shut it down every single night, or that causes damage, and so you let the machine run for a week before you shut it down fully? What's the current wisdom?
There really, it's, everyone always asks that question, and there really isn't a best practice for that. I mean, when it comes to a computer, at Wave, we like to tell our clients, you know, leave your computers on, because that's how we can send updates to it. You know, if you're out of the office and you're trying to connect from home, obviously your computer needs to be on for you to connect to your computer if you do any type of RDP or anything like that. But if it's just your home computer that you're working on, whether you keep it on, reboot it, shut it off at night, it really doesn't matter. You know, if you notice there's performance issues after a while, you know, it's always a good thing to reboot. That's always number one on the list. Make sure you reboot, see if that helps. But there really is no best practice. I mean, some people will tell you one way or the other. They will tell you, make sure you shut off your computer and don't leave it on at night. Other people will tell you, no, there's no reason to do that. So there's not really a best practice when it comes to that. It's more important when you're in the office and you go home and you need to connect to your office PC. Obviously, you don't want to turn it off then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. How about defragging your files, your computer? How often should you do it? Can you give us some advice on that?
Again, surprisingly, that's not as important as it used to be with the newer operating systems. You know, back in the day when there was Windows 95 or Windows XP, that didn't have a lot of features that it built into it to optimize itself. That was a lot more prevalent. But nowadays with Windows 10, I've never defragmented my own Windows 10 PC. I mean, it's a lot more optimized now, built into the operating system. So you don't really have to worry about that as much anymore. It's more the older operating systems, Windows XP, things like that, which hopefully no one has. If you do, that definitely, again, with Windows 7 should be upgraded, because that's a big security hole.
So 10 puts the bits back in the right place rather than just randomly all over the place?
Yeah, it does its own self-optimization where it's not as important to have to defrag your hard drive.
Mark, just out of curiosity, is Wave pretty much take clients that are within Massachusetts, or do you guys have clients that are outside of Massachusetts?
The majority of our clients are in Massachusetts, but we do have some clients that are outside of Massachusetts as well. The majority are internal though to Massachusetts.
So it's not really a requirement that you be like within driving distance of somebody.
No, it's not a requirement at all.
Okay.
I think half of Braintree Hill Office Park is
Yeah.
a Wave customers now.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you, Mark and Kamran, for your advice and counsel and responsiveness.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for having us, and definitely stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. So it's almost 45 minutes. I don't know what the protocol is, but does anyone have any additional comments or questions before we close up?
We don't have any town hall, just as a reminder, tomorrow. So Fridays are now off. We won't be scheduling anything on a Friday. Yeah, thumbs up, right? Enjoy your summer.
Great.
And how about Monday, Cammie?
Well, we're working on next week's schedule. We have a couple of ideas in the works, but you know, as always, if you have any ideas or comments or feedback on anything that we've already done, let me know. I'm always up for ideas. So I'll have something out to you guys once we have a few things under, but I know that the Shook Talk came out today, as the replay did, and I was not able to sit in on it yesterday, but I know a few of you said you were not impressed by this past week's. I didn't really understand if a couple of you had that opinion, whether it was the topic or the speakers or how it was presented, or what was your biggest negative for that, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
I think, well, first of all, this was the first one that I had watched and wasn't really sure what to expect. I forgot to pull my microphone a little closer here. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I have looked up the Shook website to get a little better feel of who they were and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And based upon the website, I guess I was really anticipating some really good presentations. Perhaps the Zoom type approach to the presentation. There were 3 segments, and some of the quality was good, some of it wasn't so good. But that may simply be the nature of the way the way the segments were put together. So I guess I would say I'm going to go. That happened to be part 2 as well, and I'm going to go back and look at part 1 and just see if maybe it happened to be the speakers that particular day or something. So I haven't written it off yet. But
Okay.
the question to you, Cammie, is how did we come across them? Do you know?
Well, John was awarded the Best in State by Forbes, and it was done all through Shook. So, they partnered together, and that's how he became notified of this series. And then through the LPL partnership, that's how we are accessing them as a larger team. Otherwise, you'd either have to be invited into them, or I'm not sure if it was if it's a paid thing. I don't know the details there, but and we hadn't sat in on any of them. It's just that the synopses had looked great. So, it's something to replace the Wednesdays with LPL Wealth Consultants, because that seemed largely a little salesy, you know, half of it would be sort of salesy and then the other half would be interesting, but you'd have to sit through the salesy part. So it became a little annoying. But, you know, we'll just keep our options open. And I know Shook doesn't really announce, you know, their next week's guests until they get closer to that. You know, like we might not know who's speaking on Tuesday or what they're planning for until Monday. So we just kind of have to, you know, see what pops up and, you know, put it out there for, you know, if it sounds interesting. But generally it looks like, you know, they might not always be on at the same time on Tuesday, but it looks like most of them going forward would be on Tuesday, and that's what they've told me.
I know I did get an email in the meantime, as you did, I think, Cami, to indicate that the replay was available from Tuesday.
Today, yeah, it came out today for me.
Yep. Tim, I think you also watched it. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was awful. I just thought it was I just didn't think the quality was good. I didn't think you know, it was pat myself on the back kind of a presentation. I didn't see where it was telling us anything useful going forward other than how wonderful the speaker was. I got nothing out of it.
Right. Okay.
In fact, I shut it down at about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, I was really looking forward to it, Cami. I didn't go in with a negative attitude. I was thinking,
oh yeah, no, I don't blame me. Yeah. Well, you expect it to be one thing, and when it's not, it's frustrating.
Yeah. I can get nagged at home. I don't need this shit on.
I appreciate you trying to continue to bring content. So that's my comment.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
Okay. And I have to run. I have to jump onto another one.
Yep.
So stay safe,
Sounds
everybody.
good. Yeah. Have a good night.
Good, Tom.
All right.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Good
Cami.
night. Thank
All
you.
right, good night.